Good morning and welcome to Stony Stratford Community Church service today. I'm Jackie. It's good to welcome those of you who are here in the sanctuary and also those of you who are watching on screen. Today, Elizabeth is going to be leading us in worship, and then I'll be preaching live. So I think this is about the third time that we've had a live sermon. And then we'll be sharing in communion. And Herman's going to run Zoom for us. I'm going to lead communion from the church sanctuary, and we'll see how all that goes. And we'll have opportunity to pray while we're taking communion for places like Afghanistan and Haiti. So it's going to be quite a full morning. And I just want to start by saying thank you to those who helped with the garden, the kitchen, the sanctuary. Yesterday, the garden looks amazing. The kitchen's had such a thorough clean. That was amazing too. Colin and Wendy did a great job with a small team in the sanctuary. There's still some jobs left to be done. So if you weren't able to participate and would like to help, please look out for those jobs and let the appropriate people know what you can do. And all this is in aid of Georgina and Alex's wedding, which will be on the 3rd of September, and then back to church for everybody on the 5th of September, which we're all looking forward to. So everything's getting well prepared. But our attention this morning is now going to be turned to our worship and giving God the honour and the praise that he deserves. Let's worship him.
At your name, the mountains shake and crumble. At your name, the oceans roar and tumble. At your name, angels will bow, the earth will rejoice, your people cry out. Lord of all the earth, we'll shout your name, filling up the skies with endless praise, Yahweh, Yahweh, we love to shout your name, oh Lord. At your name, the morning breaks in glory. At your name, creation sings your story. At your name, angels will bow, the earth will rejoice, your people cry out. Lord of all the earth, we'll shout your name, filling up the skies with endless praise, Yahweh, Yahweh, we love to shout your name, oh Lord. Oh, there is no one like our God, we will praise you, there's no one like our God, we will sing, there's no one like our God, we will praise you, there's no one like our God, we will sing. Lord of all the earth, we'll shout your name, filling up the skies with endless praise, Yahweh, Yahweh, we love to shout your name, oh Lord. Yahweh, Yahweh, we love to shout your name, oh Lord. Who breaks the power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings, who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder and leaves us breathless in awe and wonder. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King above all kings. Who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me.
Well, thank you to those on the worship team for those songs. They fit in so well with the theme that we're following today. But first of all, there are some weeks when the daily news is hard to take, aren't there? And I think this week was one of those weeks. The earthquake in Haiti was very severe, and relief efforts have been hampered by the strong winds and the floods that quickly followed. And then to watch a mother on the news just show the new school books that her son had, but he lay crushed beneath their house, was just too much to bear, really. And then the news from Afghanistan was incredibly harrowing as well, with fear etched on the faces of so many people, and women and children terrified, really, of what's going to happen to them in the future. The situation is complex, and the pulpit is not the place for political commentary. But the biblical mandate is clear. We have a responsibility to those in Haiti and to the refugees fleeing from Afghanistan. And we have put out information about how you can help in Milton Keynes. And if you haven't got that information in your inboxes, then come and speak to me and I can let you know how you can help. So the message that I'm bringing today, as we reach the last chapter of Ruth, is a message that brings great hope. And I think it's a message that we really need at this particular time. The series has been called Above and Beyond. And today I want us to be able to receive that hope. When there's so much tragedy around, we need to be able to just be filled with the hope of the gospel. We've reached this 4th chapter. It's been a story of poverty, loss, tragedy, restoration, and hope. And I'm going to do a very, very brief recap for those who haven't been around over the summer. But please at least listen to last week's sermon, otherwise you won't make too much sense of today's. Naomi and Elimelech had 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, and they lived in Bethlehem. There was a famine. They moved to Moab in search of food. Mahlon and Chilion married 2 Moabite women called Orpah and Ruth. In doing that, they were actually disobedient to God. If you read in Deuteronomy chapter 7, you will discover why. Elimelech died, and then 10 years later, Mahlon and Chilion died as well. The 3 women were all broken in their grief. Naomi decides to return to Bethlehem, and Ruth insists that she goes with her. That's the first example of Ruth going above and beyond. Orpah stays in Moab. Chapter 2, Ruth, arriving in Bethlehem, sets out to make something positive of their situation, looks for a field to glean. She finds herself in Boaz's field. He's a godly man, and Boaz goes above and beyond in the kindness that he shows to her. Chapter 3, Naomi encourages Ruth to ask Boaz to marry her. He's a relative of theirs. He's what's called a kinsman redeemer, an important role in the life of the Jewish family. Ruth does this. Boaz clearly loves Ruth, but he informs her that there is somebody else who is a closer relative who should be the kinsman redeemer. And that is where we left things last week. So, the beginning of chapter 4, we read this. Meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate and sat there just as the guardian or kinsman redeemer. This man came along. Boaz said to him, "Come over here, my friend, and sit down." So he went over and sat down. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the gate and said, "Sit here," and they did so. Then he said to the guardian redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should bring this matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these witnesses. If you redeem it, do so. But if you will not, tell me, so I will know. For no one has the right to it except you, and I am next in line." "I will redeem it," he said. Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also require Ruth, the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead and his property." At this, the guardian redeemer said, "Then I cannot redeem it, because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it." Now, in the earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. So the guardian redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it yourself." And he removed his sandal. We looked last week in detail about the role of the kinsman or guardian redeemer. So you really do need to listen to the detail of that from last week. But just to say, it was a costly role fulfilled by a very close member of the family, often the brother of the man who died. And that person had to pay for the land that the family had owned and perhaps had been mortgaged. And that land was then returned to the family. He also had to be willing to marry his relative's widow, give her a child and heir, and then look after them for the rest of their lives. Boaz loved Ruth, and he wanted her for himself. But he had to let this closer relative have the option of taking on the responsibility. And I think Boaz plays this situation incredibly well, because he calls this man over, he invites him to meet with the elders, and in Jewish society, at the gates of the city, the elders and the judges sat. And any legal transactions that took place had to take place in the hearing of those people. And so he's calling him over to say, this is going to be a legal transaction that's happening here. I want everyone to bear witness to this. And he tells him about the land, first of all. The land is obviously a very attractive part of the proposition, because the land, if the man took it, would make him appear much more wealthy. But once the man has said, yes, I'll have it, I'll redeem it, he then says, but you also have to take Ruth as well, and her mother-in-law. And this man thinks, actually, do you know what? I don't want all this responsibility. It's too much of a cost to pay. And he lets it go. And Boaz is then in a position where he can say, great, I've got the woman that I love, I've got what I want, and I'm prepared to pay the cost. And there's something in there, because all of this story talks to us really about the way Jesus redeems us. For Jesus, it didn't matter how high the price was. He loved us so much, he was prepared to give his life, to give up all that that he had in heaven, all the peace, the joy, the kingdom authority that he had there, to give it all up to win you and I back. He wasn't like the kinsman redeemer who said, the price is too high. I think I'll leave this one. And I want to just take 3 things from this chapter today. First of all, each of us has a story to tell from our lives. We've all had challenges to face. If you haven't had any, let me know afterwards, because I'd like to know how you've managed. But we've all had them. And it may be that sometimes we've had a hand in creating our own difficulties. It may be that we've been the victim of other people's actions, or perhaps simply caught up in an unpredictable event. The story of Naomi and Ruth makes it quite clear that we do not have to remain the victim of our circumstances. We do not have to be defined or restricted by the things that happen to us at a particular point in life. There is always hope of rebuilding our lives. Naomi and Ruth had experienced poverty. They'd experienced loss. Naomi had wandered away from God when she went to Moab. Ruth had grown up in a place which was godless, really, and she left everything behind from her family to move to Bethlehem. And she could have thought, well, there's not much life left for me. Naomi could have just been lost in her grief forever. Ruth could have thought, I'm just going to be helping my mother-in-law. There's no future. But they weren't consumed by the bad things of the past. They set to embracing the new season of their life. And the truth is that in our circumstances, however bad they might be at a given time, they are not the whole of the story. There is a longer story being written, and there is hope being released to us by God. And when Ruth meets Boaz, his love transforms her life. She's no longer the grieving widow who's lost everything, but she is the one who is loved, who is given dignity as a foreigner in Israel, and who Boaz takes as his wife. A woman who will have a son. She's rescued by him and given a future. Naomi, the one who turned away from God when her circumstances were bad and who did become bitter, now discovers that she has a future too. Her home and her land has been restored to her family, and a new grandchild is about to be born who's going to bring hope to her for the future. Boaz demonstrates that unending, unfailing love of God that goes above and beyond. A love which pays that price again and again. A love that seeks to pull us out of hopelessness and into life. I don't know today what your painful circumstances have been, what things threaten to overwhelm you. Everyone listening to this will be in different circumstances, but it may be that it's been an abusive childhood, a failed marriage, a broken relationship, an illness that threatens to cut short your life. It might be bad decisions that you've made and you can't forgive yourself for. Childlessness, addiction, a failed business. The list could go on and on. But none of those things can separate us from the love of God which is shown to us in Jesus Christ. You cannot put yourself outside the love of God unless you choose to hold on to the past. It's your choice. You can hold on to it and you can be a victim of it, or you can let go. And sometimes it takes a lot to let go, but you must let go of it, and you can let go of it so that Jesus can take you into that future. God is coming for us. He's coming for each of us with his relentless love, and he's longing to pour hope into people today. Whatever our circumstances, he's longing to pour hope into Afghanistan. He's longing to pour hope into Haiti. He's longing to pour hope into Plymouth. He's longing to pour hope into us. The circumstances that you've been through may have been agonizingly painful, and I wouldn't want to underestimate that. But Jesus went to the cross to pay the price and to welcome us into his family. And when we come to Jesus, he takes it all from us and gives us a new beginning. So that's point one. Don't let your past define you. The other 2 points are a bit shorter. The second thing in this passage is that God's purpose is that when we are blessed, we are to become a blessing to other people. When Boaz makes that legal commitment to buy Elimelech's land and then to marry Ruth, the elders and the people, they gather round and they pronounce a blessing. Now, these blessings sound incredibly strange to us, but they would have sounded really normal to the people to the Jewish people. This is what it says, verse 11. The elders and all the people at the gate said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who built up together the family of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. Through the offspring the Lord gave you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah." Strange blessings, aren't they? Let's just tease them out just for a minute. Rachel and Leah were the mothers of the sons of the 12 tribes of Israel. Their sons were the heads of each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And they want Ruth to be blessed with children who will bring blessing to the family of Israel. That's a great blessing to pray over her woman who is a foreigner, isn't it? That she will be significant in Jewish history. What an amazing blessing they're praying. And it reminds us that God doesn't rule anyone out, ever. Whatever their history and circumstance and background, God can draw them in and weave them into his amazing plan. Secondly, for Boaz and Ruth, they pray, "May you have standing and be well known in Bethlehem." God's purpose was to rescue them, bless them, and set them out to be a blessing in their community for everyone else. People were going to look at them and see where they had been and where they had come to. And they were then going to be givers of blessing to see people released into their futures as well. And my third point I want to make is linked to the final blessing that was in that little section. May your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. This is incredibly complicated, and you'll have to go and read it afterwards, but let me tell you a little bit. God's word tells us that his grace is for everyone. no exceptions. No one is excluded. But you know, over my 40 years as a pastor, I've met plenty of people who think they're excluded, who tell me that they just can't get over the shame that they feel, the things that they've done. But that is not how it is with God, and this story tells us that. But also, read Brendan Manning's book, The Ragamuffin Gospel. Ask Kenny about it, because it's a book he loves. Because we're all ragamuffins that God rescues. But the story of Tamar is in Genesis 38, and it's complex. She's similar to Ruth. She was a foreigner and a widow, and she needed a redeemer. But unlike Ruth, there was no one to redeem her. So, as she needed an heir, she dressed like a prostitute, and she had sex with her father-in-law, Judah, and she gave birth to a son who was called Perez. And here the people are blessing Ruth and Boaz, saying, "May your family be like that of Perez." Now, he was born as the result of deception, the result of wrongful sexual relationship, and yet his name, Perez, is in the genealogy of Jesus. Tamar's complicated story and the sin she and Judah committed was woven into the amazing story of redemption that God initiated. It doesn't make their behavior right. It just means that there is nothing that is beyond the redemption of God. And what becomes clear the more you look at this story is that even someone like Boaz had a past. Don't know whether you've realized that as you've read through this. He's portrayed as a well-respected, godly man, and he was. But he had a past. His father is listed as Salmon. And he was married to Rahab. Do you remember Rahab? She was a prostitute in a corrupt pagan city that was under God's condemnation. And she rescued the Jewish spies that were part of God's chosen people. And her actions to save the spies and align herself with God's people brought her into a place where she could be saved and be listed among the heroes of faith in Hebrews 11. So he had a past, even though he was a godly man himself. We've all got a past. And if we delved back into our family history, we might find even more of a past. Who knows? But when we come to Jesus, there is a new beginning. There is a better future that we can build with him. And this story is full of that hope. So let us not allow our present and our future to be defined by our past. Let God's love draw us into that freedom that he has. Let us live our lives as a blessing to other people, to those who don't know Jesus, to those who are living under the shadow of their past, to whoever he leads us to this week. Let's be a source of blessing to them. And let's thirdly embrace the future with hope. God gave Ruth significance and purpose, and he will do the same for you and the people that he takes you to share the gospel. If you read the end of the story, where Ruth and Boaz have Obed as their child, again, you will come to see Obed in the genealogy of Jesus. I think he's David's grandfather. It might be great-grandfather, but he's in the genealogy of Jesus. There's so much hope and life in this story. And our world is full of broken and damaged people. And we've heard more this week with Afghanistan and Haiti. But God is the God of hope. And even in those dire circumstances, he can bring life. He can bring hope. He can bring freedom. And he wants to use you and me and others who know him to help in that process. Just as God goes above and beyond for us, he wants us to be those who go above and beyond on his behalf. May he help us to do that. Amen. We're going to move to Zoom to go into communion.